In 1969, a hunting party stands on the frozen edge of the Beaufort Sea. Between Point Barrow and Icy Cape, the Arctic stretches out in a flat, blinding sheet of white. But something breaks the horizon. It is a ship. There is no crew. There are no distress signals. Just a rusted iron carcass locked fast in the crushing grip of the pack ice. The hull is bleeding rust into the snow. No name is visible on her side, but the locals know exactly what they are looking at. She had a name, once, and if you know your Arctic history, the sight of her would stop your heart, because this vessel was abandoned 38 years earlier. Think about that. By all laws of physics and the sea, she should be at the bottom of the ocean. She was left for dead in 1931, written off by her captain, surrendered to the lethal pressure of the winter freeze. The men who sailed her walked away. Everyone agreed the ice had claimed her. Yet here she is, waiting, watching, refusing to die. She was not built to be a ghost. She was launched in 1914 from the Lindholmen shipyards of Gothenburg, Sweden. They christened her the Ångerman Elfin, named after a Swedish river. Built for German owners, she spent her early years running trade routes across the Baltic Sea during the First World War. She was a beast of burden. 230 feet of heavy steel, tipping the scales at 1,322 tons. She carried a bluff, heavily reinforced bow, built to punch through frozen waters. She was no beauty. One of the men who sailed her described her as a strange and disappointing craft, all bulk and iron, entirely unsuited for canvas sails. Her single smokestack was shoved awkwardly far to the stern. She plodded along at a top speed of 10 knots. But she was built to endure. After the war, the ship became spoils of conflict. Under the Treaty of Versailles, she was handed over to the British as reparations. In 1921, the Hudson's Bay Company bought her for a bargain, £15,000. They renamed her the Baychimo. They sent her to the very edge of the map. For a decade, the Baychimo became a lifeline for the isolated Inuit settlements along the northern coast of Canada and Alaska. Operating out of Ardrossan, Scotland, she crossed the globe to carry rifles, sugar, tea, and tobacco into the deep north. In return, she loaded her holds with valuable furs. It was perilous work. The Arctic Ocean does not suffer trespassers gladly. The pack ice shifts with unpredictable violence, capable of crushing wooden vessels into splinters. In 1924, the Baychimo watched helplessly as the ice swallowed another Hudson's Bay Company ship, the three-masted schooner Lady Kindersley. The Lady Kindersley was trapped off Point Barrow, drifting ominously north while her crew planted food caches on the ice. The Baychimo arrived and circled the trap for 6 days in blinding snow. No path opened. She had to turn her back, carrying only the surviving crew away as the schooner vanished forever. The Baychimo survived that year. She survived the next. She threaded a needle through towering cliffs of ice that scraped her steel sides. Her captain, Sidney Cornwell, learned to respect that razor-thin margin between a successful run and a frozen grave. But luck is a finite resource, and by 1931, the Baychimo was running on empty. The winter of 1931 arrives early, and it arrives with teeth. Before the season even begins, Captain Cornwell sends a warning to his superiors. He tells them the ship is taking too much damage. He tells them she is not strong enough to work through the heavy Arctic ice anymore. But the world is in the grip of the Great Depression. Fur prices are plummeting. The company cannot afford a missed season. They order him north. The Baychimo leaves Nome on July 24th. Almost immediately, the ice begins to close its jaws. They hit solid pack ice off Wainwright on July 26th. Through August, the ship creeps forward, dodging massive, jagged slabs of ice that slide under her hull. The crew sleeps in snatches, the engines barely turning just to keep the propeller from being sheared off in a collision. High above, Charles Lindbergh, the most famous aviator alive, flies over the struggling ship and keeps going. No one is coming to help them. They are a month behind schedule. Every man on board knows the danger of the Arctic in September, let alone October, but they press on. By September 12th, they reach Herschel Island. The holds are packed with thousands of pelts. The mission is accomplished. Now they just have to make it home to Vancouver. The Arctic has other plans. A brutal storm pushes the ice west, walling off their escape route. The ship batters its way through the floes, reversing, ramming, searching for a fracture in the white expanse. On September 15th, 85 miles from safety, the ice takes a bite out of the ship. A propeller blade snaps clean off. The remaining blades and unbalanced shaft shudder violently with every rotation. Captain Cornwell's temper frays. The crew is exhausted. A company representative on board privately notes that panic is setting in. The sound of the ice grinding against the steel hull is a constant, deafening shriek. They reach Barrow on September 18th, only to be trapped again. By late September, the situation turns desperate. They have only 9 days of coal left. On October 1st, the sea freezes entirely. The Baychimo is locked in. The crew abandons the vessel, walking a half-mile across the frozen ocean to take shelter in Barrow. 2 days later, the ice inexplicably loosens, and the ship breaks free. But it is a false hope. On October 8th, the ice returns, thicker and heavier than before. The ship is mired permanently. The Hudson Bay Company dispatches rescue planes a week later, airlifting 22 crew members to safety. 15 men, including Captain Cornwell, are left behind. They build a wooden shelter on the shoreline, preparing to set out the long, dark winter and guard their precious cargo. And then, on November 24th, a blinding blizzard strikes the coast. For 3 days, the world was reduced to howling winds and whiteout conditions. The men huddled in their shelter, listening to the roar of the Arctic. When the winds finally die down, they step outside. They look out towards the frozen sea. The Baychimo is gone. Where a 1,300-ton freighter set just days before, there is nothing but a jagged mound of broken ice. Captain Cornwell concludes the obvious. The ice crushed her hull, and the storm sent her to the bottom. But the Baychimo has not sunk. She has broken her leash. A few days later, Inupiat Seal Hunter arrives at the crew's camp with an impossible story. He tells them he has seen their ship. She is not at the bottom of the ocean. She is floating peacefully, locked in the ice 45 miles south of their position. Cornwell and his men trudge across the ice to find her, and there she is. The captain assesses the damage and decides she will never survive the winter. They empty her holds of the most valuable furs, leave the rest of the cargo aboard, and turn their backs on the Baychimo for the last time. In February 1932, planes carry the last of the crew away. The ship is alone. No coal in the furnaces. No hands on the wheel. And yet, she sails. In January 1932, a musher named Leslie Melvin spots her drifting near the shore, still intact, still upright. He boards her, taking the captain's uniform, some flags, and contraband liquor, a souvenir from the ship that should not exist. In August of that same year, a group of 28 Inupiat hunters board the derelict, but the Arctic is fiercely protective of its ghost ship. A freak summer storm blows in, trapping the hunters aboard for a terrifying week before rescue boats arrive. In March 1933, it happens again. A group of men seek shelter on the Baychimo during a blizzard. For 10 days, they are imprisoned in the dark, freezing holds. When the storm finally breaks, they stumble out onto the deck and find they have been carried 250 miles from where they boarded. The ship is not just drifting, she is navigating. As the years bleed into decades, the Baychimo becomes an apparition. She appears out of the fog, rust-stained and battered, riding upon pans of ice that look ready to shatter. In August 1933, a tiny wooden schooner named the Trader stumbles upon her. Botanist Isabel Wiley Hutchinson looks up at the towering, rust-stained giant. The Baychimo is perched precariously on a single pan of ice, a frozen pedestal that looks ready to break up at any second. They salvage what they can, a whaleboat, furniture, and something else. A collection of Inuit artifacts gathered by filmmaker Richard Sterling Finney. The ship is giving up pieces of herself. She is spotted in 1934. Then in 1935. An expedition in 1939 allegedly attempts to salvage her, but creeping ice floes force them back. Then a Hollywood director named Ewing Scott decides he wants her, not to save her, to destroy her. Scott plans to use the Baychimo as the centerpiece of his new film, Renegades. A spectacular on-camera detonation. The ghost ship finally put to rest for the cameras. He searches the northern coast for months. He finds nothing. The ship that could not be sunk could not be found. She vanished when pursued, and materialized only when no one was looking, as if she chose her own witnesses. By the 1960s, she should be dust. 30 years of brutal, sub-zero temperature cycles contracting and expanding her still. 30 years of colliding with icebergs, and yet, Inuit hunters see her drifting along the Beaufort Sea in 1962. Then again, frozen into pack ice in 1969. After 1969, the sightings stop. The world assumes she has finally surrendered. But here's the gap in the story, the space where the facts run out and the dark rushes in. No wreckage has ever been found. In 2006, the Alaskan government launches a dedicated expedition. They use modern technology to scour the coast and scan the seafloor. They find nothing. No steel plates. No boiler. No debris. In 2015, an archaeology curator named Josh Ruther opens a drawer in the University of Alaska Museum of the North. He finds a copper ulu, a musk oxhorn blubber pounder, and bone pins wrapped in sinew lashing. The tag reads, "Taken from the Baychimo." Artifact salvaged in the 1930s, resting quietly in a museum drawer for 80 years. A physical tether to a ship that simply ceased to exist. Did the ice finally crush her? Did she sink into the deep, dark trenches of the Arctic Basin? Or is she still out there, locked in a frozen tomb, waiting for the ice to thaw? We map the stars. We chart the ocean floor. But the Arctic keeps its secrets. The Baychimo is built by men, abandoned by men, and ultimately reclaimed by a force entirely indifferent to us. A 1,300-ton mass of steel does not just evaporate. It is out there, perhaps buried under decades of snow, perhaps resting in the black water, unseen. Subscribe if you're the kind of person who can't leave a question unanswered. The path ahead is dark, and the woods are deep. Do not walk them alone. Subscribe to stay in the light, or click the video on your screen to wander deeper into the shaded divide. We will be waiting.